This is Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast.
This is Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. I'm Kevin Savitz. Larry Breakwell was founder of the Toronto West Atari Computer Support Group, then president of the Toronto Atari Programmers Society, which was the largest Atari user group in Canada. He adapted the Atari version of the book Academy on Computers Hands-On Atari 400-800 Beginner's Manual from a version of the book focused on the Commodore PET. These beginner's manuals were part of the Academy on Computers, which was a self-directed learning activity which was based on Bits and Bytes, a television program produced by the TVOntario network. This interview took place on May 10, 2018.
I went to Silverthorne Collegiate, which is in Etobicoke, the western part of Toronto. And in grade 10, I started helping out. We started taking our first computer courses, and they had a DEC PDP-8, whatever, the mini mainframe. And it had one of those giant Winchester hard drives you'd slide in, and then you'd have to bootstrap with the toggles to boot it up. So a couple of guys in the class with me got really proficient at it, and the teacher would let us come in the morning at 8 o'clock in the morning and actually boot the computer up for the whole school. That's what they ran their attendance stuff off of, right? Back in the old days. So if you remember, the Winchester hard drive was a 1.5 feet wide, like 6 inches tall.
Right.
Or whatever, slide it in. And we were allowed also to use the keyboard instead of using the punch cards. We were allowed to actually type our assignments into the keyboard because we became so good at running the computer. So that was fun. And then I think from there, so this would be like around 1980. And so personal computers came out. What do we have? We had like Apple and PC and Commodore 64 and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Trash 80 was out yet. I think that came a year later. And I'm not sure what finally made the decision to go and buy one. But I decided that I would get one. I think my dad, who was a principal, thought it would also be a good idea. I had a paper route at the time, so I took a loan out from my parents to buy the first computer, and I think it was either by the time we were done with taxes and everything, somewhere around $1,500, $2,000 bucks.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly I didn't have that much money yet.
Sure.
So I took the loan out from my parents, and I remember going out to a store in Mississauga and buying it, walking in, and they had the different ones, PCs, and I wanted the Atari. I think I got the first day, I got the Atari 800 with, I think I went with the 16K upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
Not Asteroids, and what was the one that you jump through hyperspace to go shoot at the...
Star Raiders.
Star Raiders. So I got that,
yeah.
And the tape recorder. And I think the basic cartridge, you had to buy that separately. Or either came as a package, I had to buy separately. I remember getting that,
mm-hmm.
and then taking it home and just starting to program, and got a few books and got going on that and had a blast. And then quickly over the months and the years, I got, the hard drive and the modem, and then just started programming from there.
Nice. You probably mean floppy drive.
Sorry, yes, floppy drive, yes. Yeah. Yeah. You even forget the words. So that would have been, about 80, by about 82, I was working in a store in Etobicoke called the Computer Software Exchange, and they wanted to drive sales, so we created a computer user group called the Toronto West Atari Support Group. So that was out of Richview Collegiate. We held meetings. I created it with support from the store. I think we've got around, it was based off a lot of their customers. So in the first few months, we had like 40, 45 people involved. And like every other user group, it would be, discuss, learn the latest stuff, have the vendors come in if we could to tell us what cartridges are coming out, what games, and exchange software and stuff. And then about a year later, there was another group in downtown Toronto, and we merged with them to become the Toronto Atari Programmers Society. And that one, at its height when I ran it for 2 years, had over 200 members. It was the largest Atari user group in Canada. Published the monthly newsletter. We had our monthly meetings and stuff, and the board of directors. There was one guy did the software, and he would do the cassettes and copy all the cassettes for everybody who bought them that month, that kind of stuff. So.
Nice.
And that was run out of Norseman Public School in Etobicoke for a lot of our meetings.
Was it really dedicated to only people who were into programming?
It was only for Atari people, and it was I'd say it was sort of general interest, right? So you had people who came out because they wanted to know what the games were and maybe get some free games for the software exchange, or they wanted to know more about their computer. And then there definitely was a lot of guys that were involved in programming, because the Atari, that was one of the cool things, right? Was you could actually write your own programs. You could either do it in assembler or you could do it in BASIC. And you could actually, create graphics and do what I created a bowling game. So
nice. So were you mostly a BASIC programmer, or did you adventure into assembly, or what?
Yeah, I did a little bit of assembly. In school, of course, we'd done Fortran, OMC30 Batch Basic, which was the DEC Basic. I can't remember what else. And then university did Turing. So back when I was doing this, I did a little bit of assembler, but it would be mostly basic.
Sure. Tell me about your bowling game.
So I think I wrote this around, in grade 12, just for fun. And the idea was that just like up here, do you have 5-pin bowling in the States?
No, I don't know much about bowling, but I think it's all 10 pin.
The usual is 10-pin. Up in Canada, they had 5-pin. But I think my game was a 10-pin one, and the idea was the math was based on you would move the cursor left and right with the arrows, or move your start point left and right with the arrows, and you could then decide how much you would throw in strength and whether there would be a little bit of curve or not. And then there was a certain amount of randomness built into when you threw, you wouldn't always throw a straight. 30% it would go left, 30% right, something like that. And then based on that, then the next pins get hit and hit and hit. So you would then tally up your score, and sometimes you get a strike, and then sometimes you'd split, and just trying to mimic what what would regularly happen in a bowling game. I never sold it. I just did it for fun.
Does it still exist anywhere?
Probably on a cassette somewhere in my mom's house.
Nice.
Along with the Atari. All of my physical hardware is up on a shelf in the house. I haven't looked at it in probably 25 years.
That's great. You still have it.
Well, I was afraid to turn it on because I figured if it still worked, I didn't want to short something out. And now the TVs have changed, so I haven't looked into how do you connect up the Atari computer to a current monitor.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. Well, if you ever decide to fire it up, I could certainly help you. Get the bowling game that's off the cassette tape. It'd be fun probably for you to see it, and for the world to see it and have another program.
Sure.
It'd be fun. I was doing some Googling and trying to find out. The only program I could find that was associated with the Toronto Atari Programmers Society was something called Times Table Teacher. Who's it by? By Mal Berry? Mal Berry? And it's a PD program, a public domain program that is published by the Programmers Society, apparently.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Well, I remember every month we would have, there was a guy who was dedicated to collecting up the programs and putting them on the cassettes, and if you wanted to buy Volume 1, Volume 2, he would take care of that, and you just order it from him. I was involved on the newsletter side. I wrote the newsletter and collected all the articles. So. Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah. So how was the newsletter produced? Was it just like print out and photocopied?
I was lucky that one of the local companies the printer gave me a discount for photocopying it and helping to typeset it. So I would just do it on my computer on the Atari Word program, which the binder is sitting up in my office here. And just print it out, and then they would run me off, the 200, 300 copies of it, and then I would just mail it out. At the time, I'm trying to think, there was a number of different user groups around the world. One of like to Australia, and we would exchange newsletters. So I would mail them a copy for free, and they would mail me their stuff for free, that kind of thing.
Neat. Awesome. And again, same thing. If you find any of your newsletters or the other ones from elsewhere in the world, would love to get those scanned. I
did find, I can't find mine, but I did find one from the Atari Computer Users Enthusiasts of New South Wales, February 1984. So I will scan that for you and send that down.
Great, appreciate it. All right, so what else? Tell me about other exploits. Any I don't know, interesting people show up at the meetings, or just
no. And the funny thing is, the dealers, there wasn't really a huge amount of what I would consider support. Everything came out of the States. In Canada, the product was distributed by Irwin Toy. So Irwin Toy was, at one point, like, the largest Canadian toy distributor, but they had decided that they would get into computer distribution because I think it was probably a spin-off from the Atari game consoles. So they had started with the game consoles, and then when Atari brought out the computer, it was a natural just part of their product line, but they weren't a computer company. So there was a little bit of support in terms of, I remember them loaning us some equipment when I went to do a booth at one of the trade shows. So they would help a little bit for that. But in terms of, I remember them once coming out to sort of talk about new stuff that was coming, but there really wasn't a lot of, I'd say, industry guest speakers. It was more, for us, this guy's written an interesting program and he's going to talk about it tonight, but he's one of us. Mm-hmm. Or you would get the dealer, right? Because they would know what the latest games were, and they, of course, come out and demonstrate it, and, they're trying to drive sales. So, but not being a long way away from California. There wasn't a lot of high-tech guys that we were able. Well, we never got any of those kind of people to come out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
As I was looking in my on my shelves here, and I have all these different Atari books and stuff that I used to use and haven't used in 30 years. The Atari Assembler book, Inside Atari DOS, Compute's first and second book of Atari. They were awesome. It was an awesome thing to use to program. I really liked with the tape. If you remember, if you didn't save something properly on the tape, you could still sort of skip ahead and it would retrieve maybe 90% of the program, and then you could go back in and type the rest of it that got lost. I remember that as being an interesting little quirk. I don't know, it was sort of an interesting time in computers. A buddy of mine had a PC, an IBM PC, and he went on to do a consulting career because people were writing, asking him to write programs. That never really took off on the Atari. It still kind of was more geared towards the games and never really broke out of that. And I guess that was one of the major reasons for its demise. But it did give me a good start. From there, I went and I took aerospace engineering at U of T. All the computer programming stuff I found really simple because I've been doing it for 5 years. I thought the Atari was a great start, and it's too bad that there aren't those kinds of things today for kids to actually sit down and do little bits of programming. I think stuff, you could do it for your smartphone and stuff, but I don't think it's quite the same. I don't think you get the same satisfaction out of just running BASIC.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you about the this book that you co-wrote, the Academy on Computers Hands-On Atari 400, 800 Beginner's Manual. So my understanding of this is this was kind of a book to accompany a TV show that came out of Canada. And tell me about how you got this project.
Well, the TVOntario, which TVOntario is sort of like PBS for Ontario. It's its own channel, like Channel 2 out of Toronto. And they were, just like PBS, they did instructional programs as well as current events and different things. So they had created this how to program to try and teach, to teach people who didn't know anything about computers. Here's how you can do programming. Same idea as, here's guitar. Here's how to learn how to play guitar. So with the computers, they had originally, if I remember correctly, they originally structured it with the PET computer, and whoever wrote that first one, I've looked at it, Trudy Van Buskirk, Burshik. They created the original one based on that computer, and then they came to me because they found out I was the president of the programming user group, and they asked me can you just take that book and rewrite it with how does the Atari do it? What do the screens look like? What's the syntax? What do you have to change? What's the exact same? So I just basically went through each page and redid it for the Atari.
Seems like you had to do actually quite a lot of work because there's a ton of screenshots in there, and the Atari Basic is kind of different from the PET Basic, as I recall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm just looking at it right now. Fortunately, I didn't have to create it from scratch. It was just taking what they had done and as I say, just changing it to whatever the Atari would pop up with. I can't remember if they borrowed my Atari to do the screenshots or not. But yeah.
And did they?
It was a neat little thing to put on a resume.
Sure. And did you get paid for this?
That's a good question. I might have. If I did, I don't recall it being a lot of money. Thinking no. I think it was more of a good marketing thing, but if it was a lot of money, it would have stuck in my head. So
sure.
it probably was more of an honorarium.
Sure. I don't think there's
typically allowed
typically
to have my name on something.
Sure. I don't think there's typically a lot of big money in public television. So.
No, I think Ken Burns still struggles to get even his stuff funded.
Right. So that must have been a fun project, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And when you're 16, it's neat to be asked to do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I had taught, one of the other things I did a couple of sessions. The community school at Norseman had asked me, because I was also running the user group, if I would teach courses for the kids, 10 to 14 years old, how to program. So I did that for a couple of terms. And I would bring my computer in, the Atari, lug everything in with a TV, oil-style cathode ray tube, lug all that stuff in the back of the car to run that each week for like 8 weeks per session, and did that a few times. Just trying to show kids, what you could do with BASIC.
Cool. Must have been interesting with one computer for several children.
Yeah, tough to teach, but at least it showed them what you could do. I wish I could have had computers for everybody, but again, they were so expensive. So even high schools, they took years. I think it was grade 12 before they finally got TRS-80s into the schools, because they were just so expensive for education systems to put them in there.
Yeah.
Even at a discount from the manufacturers. But yeah, it hopefully helped somebody.
Cool. What do you do today?
These days, I am sort of semi-retired. I did product management for technology companies like Sharp and Motorola, and then when my wife's career took off and we had the kids, I decided that instead of traveling around the world anymore, I would stay home and raise the kids and take them to hockey and all the other stuff. When my wife's career took off, she's a partner in her insurance accounting company.
Awesome. If you could send a message to the Atari computer users that still exist, and you can right now, what would you tell them?
I hope after, 36 years, everyone still has really fond memories of their Atari computers, and I hope a few of them are still out there working. They were a great beginner computer, and they were a lot of fun for me, and I hope everybody still is enjoying their memories of that.
Awesome. I think I have what I need. Thank you, Larry.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for talking with me. That was interesting going down memory lane.
If you enjoy these interviews and would like to contribute, there are two ways you can help. You can help fund these interviews directly by contributing to my Patreon. A small monthly contribution will help offset the expenses of making these oral history interviews. Contribute at patreon.com/Savitz. Or make a tax-deductible contribution to the Internet Archive, a nonprofit digital library that has done incredible things to preserve computer history. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate. Thanks.